Alright, downhill time. Oh, don't have to do anything, just leave it in neutral. This is eco. We're green here. Can I coast all the way down with a bit of brakes? Oh, I'm already going quicker than I ever went going uphill. Okay, not quite, but 50 kilometers over 30 miles. Soapbox sim racing, that will be amazing. Oh. Some questions about the Oculus Rift from numerous people, like Kronos Kiwar, Erwin, and from Orkosi. Already falling off the... Oh, yeah, I'm in neutral. Engine braking, let's do that, that's probably better. Oculus Rift, no, not tried one yet. It's an interesting thing, as with so many things. There are such heated debates on the internet about people getting a bit too active in supporting something that they don't have or is in a very early stage. But anyway, regardless of that, it's an interesting idea. VR has been attempted many times over the years. I saw my first VR thing in like 92 or 93, I think, at some expo in the Netherlands. You know, of some Vertex type. Oh, that's sharp. Hello, people. And it was horrible latency and all quite nasty. But of course, with another one of those silly things like the resolution of pedals or the watts of your stereo system, the world is currently going pixel crazy with phones with, I guess, soon 4K resolution or something, which is of course fairly pointless. Although it is, well, a side effect could be that these screens are quite usable for VR devices. So I'm interested in the general idea. I don't think that DK2, even as it is now, has enough resolution. It also has the wrong sort of aspect ratio in the field of view. It's more vertical than horizontal, and for racing I would like more horizontal. But if these screens have low input lag, which will always be the most important thing, then yeah, I can see, you know, in a couple of years there being some products that are really quite interesting. So I would really like to try it at some point. But I think there is a couple of years more life left in the triple screen setup. This car feels a lot quicker when you go down the hill, I noticed. I haven't even gone full throttle yet. $60. Squeal, boy. A little bit of off throttle wobble. It's fun downhill. My first Scandinavian flick in my own car. Oh, going all wrong. The first and last. Sorry, getting carried away there. So yeah, that's about VR Oculus Rift. Looking forward to trying that at some point. Not quite sure if at this stage we're there yet, but yeah, interesting. Hank asks, which type model size is the black wheel you're holding up in the video? Are you planning to experiment with physics engine? Okay, that's another question. This wheel is Spa Design, so look them up on the internet. It's a 270mm round wheel. It looks better in real life than in their pictures. It's fairly affordable. It's also lighter than a comparable Momo wheel. So I quite like it. It's suede. It hasn't worn yet in the hours that I spent on it, so that's a good tip for if you want this size lightweight wheel. It's pretty good. Then I show no mercy. Can I have your setup wheel pedals, please? No. Greetings, Niels. I'm a follower of Remco Hitman Super VOV projector setup. Yes, I guess most of you will have seen something of that. I was previously a triple monitor user until turning to the immersive side, so to speak. My question is, what's your real personal opinion on the advantages and disadvantages of either setup? So if you haven't seen Remco's setup, he uses a projector, 1080p, and he has this DIY screen that is right behind the steering wheel with a cutout for his legs, so it's really in your face. And it really immerses you quite well because you've got like 5 or 6 feet wide and 2-3 feet high worth of screen, so that's very immersive. I think it works quite well. It has advantages and disadvantages really. The resolution is a problem because 1080p is just not enough once it's right in front of you and that big. So that's the downside. The main downside, in fact, you can throw more AA at it, but at some point you almost see a little bit of a screen door effect, like with the Oculus. So that's the downside of it. But other than that, it's mainly positives. The field of view, of course, with no curveness in there, no curve in there, is a little limited from left to right, but enough for driving. So I quite like it, although it would be better with more resolution. Triple screens, on the other hand, have a lot more resolution, which is great, but those bezels, you get used to them to some degree, but I'm not quite. Let's flick it again. Oh, yes. Yes. Woohoo. The second Scandinavian flick resulted in much less crashing. And the third. So with triple screens it's easier to set up, it's compact and you get more resolution. But those bezels aren't great, plus there are still sort of 3 little windows you watch through, and that's the impressive thing with a Super VOV like Hitman has. You really look into the world rather than look through windows. So yeah, I really like the setup, and I hope to experiment if I ever wake up to see a lot of money on my bank account. And ooh, 70 miles an hour climbing. Ooh, we're nearing 100. 100 miles an hour. I've never done that in my car, but as long as you go down... Oh, this is scary. 100... No. Oh. And on that bombshell... Oh. And you don't stop. Really, you just keep on falling. Oh. Oh. It's the longest crash ever. Still. Well, that gives me time. Because this old Ford Fiesta is known for its structural integrity. The next question is, how do you handle the fame and fortune of being the best producer of sim-related products? Well, currently I'm dead, so there is probably more fame and fortune coming, because once you're deceased you tend to become... more popular. Look at Michael Jackson and stuff, and I'm of course in that same sort of scale and level. No, I'm not. Well, I guess thank you a lot for regarding my products to be the best, but there is no fame or fortune, sadly. Wow, that was a big drop. Let's do that again. And as if by magic, there's a new me and a new car. So how's your hardware business running? It's going better than expected. It's a lot of fun, but also a lot of time, and I wanted to develop more products, and it's all going a little slower just because of the insane amount of time it all takes. But it seems that most of the people who bought our pedals are really happy with them. We have very, very few complaints, and when we do, we try to solve that by being very flexible with money back stuff and that sort of thing. So I think we're doing well, and there are very few people who could probably argue with our customer support being anything less but very good. So that's always been the aim, and so far I'm happy with what we achieved, and I think most people are. The last question, which will be a long one, I think, if I can stay on the road and not spin as I did. Hi, I have a question. GeForce simulation is an area where sim gaming has a potential to grow, I think. Is that an area you'd ever be interested in exploring, software hardware wise? If just to brainstorm a bit, how do you think you would approach the problem? If you were asked to come up with a hardware and or software solution for it, keeping in mind such things as price tag, the latency issues and stuff with using movable parts, as well as the potential possibilities when it comes to communicating G-forces using alternate sense and types of information. Thanks. Okay, that's a interesting question, for which I have 16 minutes, if provided I don't fly off the mountain. Let's start with being blunt. I don't like motion of any kind, and I don't really want to have it. So now that that's out, I have a lot of explaining to do, because I realize it's used a lot in by more fortunate sim racers or guys who really spend a lot of their savings on these things. So now that I've said that, how do I explain my position? First of all, it's not like I have sort of no experience with it and I'm just judging it prematurely because it's something new and I don't like it, just like some people say he doesn't like the new Sims because it's new and different and he doesn't want to change. That's not necessarily true. I worked for a company, gpsim.eu. Oh, he flies off. Oh! Can't even drive my own car. gpsim.eu, where we had a hexapod. So it's a bit like the huge thing that they use at Cruden, for example, and also the Dallara simulator uses a hexapod. There are 6 actuators, and that gives you 6 degrees of freedom on a platform, basically. Now, if you look at what we do at GPSim, or did rather, I don't work there anymore, it was a full-size F1 replica on top of that small motion system, and that's of course asking for problems with all the weight and stuff being slow to react. The reason we had motion there was just to attract people, so it was all set up very dramatically. But at the office we also had a lightweight tub with triple screen and then attached to the motion sim, so we could tweak the motion and play with that from a more simulation point of view. And I spent days and days working with it, and even though it was a fairly small, I forgot the movement range, but fairly small hexapod compared to what Dallara uses or even to what Cruden uses, it's still a lot more expensive and a lot more capable than what us home simmers can afford with moving like seats or a simulator that's on 4 corners on actuators, for example. It is way more advanced and capable than that. And I spent many days working with it, and it's for immersion. I can see it being something, and for just some vertical vibration bumps, curbs, yeah, I can see that. But the gap between the real G-forces, flat out not doing 60. So the G-forces you see in a real car, even a Formula 3 car pulling 3 Gs, that's extremely intense, and it goes so quickly. In like a chicane, the G-forces can go from this dang to that dang 3G, minus 3G. It all happens so quickly. And then you have this motion system that very, very soon runs out of range, so it cannot move too violently, otherwise it's stuck in an extreme position, and at that point it cannot do another event before returning more to the center. So you end up with sort of a magic carpet that moves a little bit slowly, and the gap between that and reality is so large that I don't think, even with all the knowledge you might have about what's the balance organ here in your head, I don't think there's any way to compensate properly, I'm afraid. So what I also really am against is giving a user inconsistent feedback, and that's often the case with motion. Like I said, if you have two right hand corners equal, just the same corner with a short straight in between, the first corner perhaps you get a certain amount of motion, but then the platform is still somewhere near its edge of motion, and then the second corner, it hasn't returned to center yet, for example, and even though the second corner is identical to the first, your motion feedback could be a little different because the platform has run out of space, basically. So I'm totally against giving feedback that isn't one-on-one and has to be fudged in a way, or isn't always consistent. Another thing is latency, which what's the point of feeling something if it's more delayed than the image or your force feedback? And that's all achievable with a 16 millisecond latency, but I don't think there are that many motion systems which have a proper reaction time of the same short reaction time, and I don't want to feel stuff a little bit too late. So that's another big issue. So even with the high-end motion, I think there are so many problems that are almost impossible to solve, and then we are talking about like 50,000 euros worth of hexapod, if not more. And then we arrive at the home sim scene at some oversteer. This is surprisingly scary, even though I'm going so slowly. So we have seats that push on you a little bit. That's possibly somewhat interesting, but we also have like traction loss modules and stuff where the whole thing sort of moves from side to side. I think it's an expensive way to add immersion, but it's unlikely to give you quick, consistent and accurate feedback. And I know I'll set off a huge argument here, but as I said, I've worked for many days, weeks even, with a pretty high-end motion system, and so I feel qualified enough to say something about it. Moving seats is another issue, as they are fairly popular, as you can sort of relatively afford them perhaps, but moving in relation to your controls is something I wouldn't want, and it might also not be compatible with pressing 100 plus kilos or 200 something pounds on your brake pedal, as that really puts some strain on the back of the seat, and I doubt it can deal with that. But those motion seats in a corner, so if right, so I'm going to the right now, and the motion seat will do this. And if you look at that, that's an inversion of what it should do, kinda. Once you're now, there's this left-hander coming up, right? So if I turn left, the motion system will go like that. So once it's there, you're sort of hanging slightly to the side, giving you like 0.1 G, which is accurate, but the motion from center throwing me to that side is actually you know, it's weird because my body with inertia wants to stay in the middle, and when the seat moves to the right, I kind of get a weird throw to the other side. So as the seat is moving that way, my body is pushed to in the left of the seat. Sorry. So initially, when you first enter the corner, your initial push that you get from the motion seat is the wrong way, and it all wobbles around. I'm just totally not a fan of it. But so I'm sorry if anyone feels offended by that. It's I feel relatively strongly about it, and like I said, I also come from weeks and weeks of tweaking a much more capable and expensive motion simulator, and I've just not been convinced, and I think it's not something you should do with a race simulator where the G-forces are so high and the reaction times are so short. For a Boeing 747, you know, that never really pulls any G and it's sort of slow like that, then yeah, I can totally imagine it being convincing. But for racing, no, sorry. But there is hope. I just want to give the driver a one-on-one, no fudge, no limitations experience of the physics. So you need good low latency screens, something like a sim steering wheel, which is direct, good pedals, and anything that you can copy one-on-one. So one of the things that would be cool is like having a belt tensioner. Some of the pro sims, they use it, so your belts get tightened as you brake, and that can be a function of G-force, and it can be sustained, unlike motion, which sort of, you know, you run out of movement on your platform, for example. But something like seatbelt tensioners could be an excellent way to get a good feel for the braking, for example. So there are ways to enhance that feeling, and like I said, some mostly vertical stuff could really be interesting. I've tried a simulator with a lot of vertical feedback, and when you hit a curb, you really get a smack. That's immersive, and it doesn't try to give you any G information, so it doesn't mess with the handling or your feel of what the car is doing. So there are ways, but I think for a long time to come I'll stay static with the high-end steering and pedals and good low latency screens. So that's about my opinion there, and I guess if there are a lot of comments, I'll go back to it in the next session. Right, those were a lot of your questions about sim hardware, which I sometimes failed to answer, and I failed to drive my car up this hill, but hey, it was worth a shot. There will be more. I cannot promise when. I hope to do another one before the year is out, which doesn't leave me a lot of time. There is still a lot of questions about modding and sims and physics and that sort of stuff. So there will be more of this Q&A stuff in a future video. Thanks for watching if you managed to hold on so long. And I hope this deliberate sort of failure, I always try to do, well, not always, but sometimes try to do something different. And I hope you kinda liked it. If not, that's fine, of course. More videos at some point with more questions answered, and I will drive this for a little while longer. Bye bye, guys. Fourth gear. 4 minutes left. Fourth gear, still not doing 60. 90 kilometers, 92. Downshift. Yes. 60 miles an hour. Fourth gear. Yes. I never drive my own cars so hard. Still not 60. Approaching 60. 60 miles an hour. Still not at 60, nope. Oh, understeer. I know how my car works in the mountains, or at least in the hills of the Ardennes near the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, as I went with Remco Hitman to the Spa Classic a few times, and we went on a camping site and stuff, and sometimes I had to shift to third gear in the hills there. Okay, Scandinavian? Not really. It's not a rally car, it's also not really a powerful car. But it's mine and it's fun. And it can have a bit of liftoff. Well, oversteer is an overstatement in this case, but hey. Oh. It's funny making your own car in a sim with the physics. You just realize how quick all the cars are. Even if you drive an MX-5 in iRacing, you think, oh, it's just a slow thing. It's a lot quicker than what I drive here. And I do as if I'm a driver, but really it doesn't make any difference. It's a momentum car. Oh, there we have some. Nope. Oh, look at that.